Today, we are here to talk about something that affects us all, yet often goes unnoticed in the grand designs of our cities. The mountains of waste we generate in the construction of our buildings and infrastructure. But before we dive into the details, I want you to think about this for a moment. When was the last time you truly thought about where the materials of new infrastructure came from? Or what happens to all the debris after it's been constructed? Our group will be presenting strategies and designs to address the construction waste habits of Hatfield, Pretoria. Addressing construction waste is a complex challenge, and we've worked to ensure our approach goes beyond just proposing a strategy. It's important that we not only outline a solution, but also demonstrate its effectiveness in real-world application. In this presentation, we'll guide you through the problem states, current states, challenge states, and our target state. Our aim is to present a thoughtful and practical strategy that's both achievable and impactful. Construction waste is a ticking time bomb. We are generating billions of tons of waste every single year, much of it non-recyclable or poorly managed. To put things into perspective, in 2021 alone, the construction industry generated approximately 2.2 billion tons of waste globally. In a more relatable context, only 1.3 million tons of South Africa's 15.4 million tons of waste is recycled annually. That is a mere 12%.
When we talk about waste, we tend to think of it in simple terms: trash we throw out at home, or plastic bottles that fill up landfills. But construction waste is a whole different beast. It includes everything from concrete and metal to insulation and drywall, materials that are heavy, bulky, and most importantly, consumed in enormous quantities.
At the same time, the demand for infrastructure is not going to slow down. Urban populations are growing rapidly, and we're building more than ever. The paradox here is clear. If we continue building without considering the waste we leave behind, we're setting ourselves up for an inevitable collapse. So, would you rather manage waste or materials?
We start off by posing the question, how has the current construction cycle rooted itself within our Hatfield? Questioning us to explore the current state and methodology, looking into our purpose and target state. The why revolves around understanding the deeper reasons for Hatfield's ongoing construction cycle and its impact on the community, urban fabric, and third places, further looking at loss or transformation of third places, infrastructure and sustainability concerns, economic and development pressures. The transformation of Hatfield has led to the erosion of third places, reducing informal gathering spaces due to ongoing construction. Increased congestion and decreased walkability have impacted livability, while the loss of green spaces raises sustainability concerns. Now landing in Hatfield, we start by reviewing the context through the theoretical backing, field studies, and refining data with research.
The current system is extremely linear, where construction material enters the Hatfield precinct. It is then used for its function, and due to current building practices, waste is then deferred to landfill or dumping.
This linear system has resulted in the perpetuation of a detrimental waste culture. Waste generated on site is removed by appointed subcontractors. It then reaches the end of its life cycle by getting dumped, legally and sometimes illegally. And of course, some of the waste remains on site and on sidewalks. We sought an inquiry from local contractors. It was from these inquiries that we now know that contractors expect waste on site and make allowance for it when tendering. When asked how they could significantly reduce waste on site, they noted that prefabrication would be the best solution as an alternative building technique. An active site on Linwood making use of a temporary landfill down the road is an extreme case of this detrimental waste culture. No construction waste is reused nor salvaged on the site.
Looking at a general overview of Hatfield, which is made up of 9.63 square kilometers, we looked at 5 different existing states. Built environment uses 2.8 square kilometers. Traffic network making up 2.51 square kilometers. Pedestrian infrastructure making up 0.376 square kilometers. Underdeveloped landscape making up 3.04 square kilometers. And finally, the recreational areas making up 0.764 square kilometers. Ultimately, we can see that 60.1% of Hatfield's total area can be better utilized for human experience. This system has to change so it can work for the citizens of Hatfield.
Then moving on to our data findings. Using ArcGIS, we recorded the locations of Pretoria's landfill sites, waste management sites, and recycling sites, none of which fall within our site.
This map reflects on the construction sites that have been tracked on ArcGIS from 2012 until the current day, showing us patterns that can be found in the increase of construction in recent years. This map identifies the areas where the waste has been found and then estimated amounts based on these findings. The small circles indicating 1 to 3 square meters and larger circles being 3 to 6 square meters.
From walking around doing site analysis and ArcGIS research, this is the construction waste that is currently found next to the roads and sidewalks in Hatfield.
Based on research, we have estimated which types of waste are currently recycled in South Africa and assumed to Hatfield area and our site findings. We have identified the abandoned sites, buildings and empty sites where we look into their potential usage later in the presentation. Looking at our current state, the following slides aim to break down the information gathered from ArcGIS during our survey process, starting with the overview of Hatfield. Various zoning areas, namely the educational, residential, multi-use, institutional, and unused spaces. The traffic points identified in this space can be narrowed down to high, medium, low, and situational usage in between and around the city. Establishing where sidewalks were continuous, where there is maintenance needed, and where there is breakage. Identifying the areas where there has been more than 1.5 meters of buffer zone. And finally, the areas of the sidewalk which are more than 1.5 meters in width, which combined with the other elements help display that although there are many areas with walkable sidewalks, we lack secure infrastructure throughout the city.
One of the main contributors in the current system are construction materials being imported from various places outside Hatfield. After close analysis, we realized that there is a clear relationship between material production and the routes the material travels into Hatfield. Waste leaves the Hatfield precinct to go to landfill, where the average waste from yearly active building sites were determined.
Based on the current state and data surveyed, we have identified areas that negatively affect the pedestrian infrastructure by the current waste cycle. So, how can we rebuild these systems to create a regenerative Hatfield in a circular system?
We looked at precedents that talk to the reuse of construction waste, together with systems and policies that have been implemented around the world that help drive our cities towards a circular economy system. The precedents were aligned to sustainable development goals that they responded to. Built from 85% construction waste materials, Brighton Waste House is the quintessential project that proves that waste can be an essential building resource. The structure consists of a timber and plywood frame with modular cassette units that store waste materials for insulation and thermal mass. This Danish home was constructed using recycled bricks, aluminium, and wood, showcasing how upcycled materials can seamlessly blend into modern architecture. The project reduced carbon dioxide emissions by 86% compared to conventional building methods. San Francisco and Singapore implement urban strategies to achieve zero waste goals. San Francisco focuses on strict waste separation and composting. Singapore leverages advanced waste-to-energy technology and public education to reduce landfill dependence. Both cities demonstrate how policy, infrastructure, and community engagement can drive sustainable waste management.
We look at the current linear economy and challenge it to not only be extended to a recycling economy, but to go further and achieve a complete circular economy, mitigating waste as an entirety.
Reflecting on the previous linear system, we propose a regenerative construction cycle where waste is reused and recycled within the current system and ultimately breaking all links with landfills.
If we can shift the narrative from waste management to material management, we can not only reduce our ecological footprints, but also foster an entirely new industry of recycled construction materials. Our proposed strategy is not just about creating a solution to the waste problem. It is about creating an opportunity for growth, for reinvention, and for the reintegration of materials back into our cities. We propose a phased strategy to reincorporate recycled materials back into the construction process. This strategy will reduce our dependency on primary resources while also addressing waste head-on. With a phasing strategy in place, we will rely on the following principles to support and keep us rooted in our cause. Firstly, we will encourage a new outlook on waste management. We would also like to keep our systems strategy local, removing any need to go beyond the boundaries of our Hatfield. And lastly, to abide to a zero waste system.
Less than 30% of construction waste gets repurposed into new materials, while the rest is either buried in landfills or burned. To put it bluntly, we're taking more than we can ever replace. But this isn't just about numbers, it's about accountability. It's about the fact that we are squandering valuable resources with little regard for the long-term consequences. If we continue at this rate, we will soon run out of primary materials like sand, gravel, and clay, things we take for granted. Experts estimate that we could see a critical shortage of key construction materials by as soon as 2040. The economic and environmental benefits of this strategy mediation will be immense. Not only will we significantly reduce our carbon footprint, but we will also be creating new markets for recycled materials. Furthermore, we will be preserving precious natural resources and create a stable use of materials. At 100% reuse, Hatfield will be a completely sustainable and regenerative system. Hatfield lacks a proper waste management system across all spheres, has very little green and third spaces that are accessible to the public, and the vehicular movement hinders pedestrian accessibility greatly. From the site analysis and stakeholder meetings, we then mapped how we can implement the stakeholder request into a spatial design that aims to resolve the problems identified in Hatfield. UP development stakeholder ideals such as creating a more walkable and pedestrianised way for students and staff to commute from Hillcrest campus to main campus will be addressed. Safety and security in Hatfield will be prioritised through spatial design as outlined by the Hatfield CID, and the current construction waste system will be addressed spatially. These stakeholder spatial strategies then relate to the construction waste principles that we have identified, such as keeping it local, creating a zero waste system, glorifying waste, and creating a safer community through third places.
Currently, we have no strategy implementing the reuse of material in Hatfield, with all building material being mined.
In Phase 1, we will address the current construction waste system, using the averages from demolition, renovation, and construction waste accumulated in Hatfield. The Waste Recreation Hub will be built, while the safety of students and pedestrians will also be addressed by pedestrianising the first section of Burnett Street from main campus.
The second phase of our strategy will accommodate pedestrians over Jan Shorba and Burnett Street. The main construction and demolition plants will be built in this phase, enabling us to recycle waste such as apartment blocks, houses, and commercial spaces into new materials. Artisanal markets will be created around the pedestrianised street to increase safety and the third place.
In Phase 3, 60% of materials are generated from the construction and demolition plant, where we can reuse tons of materials as calculated, while artisanal workshops and markets are created at incremental points.
In Phase 4, parks are created to address the lack of urban green ecology, and collection points are strategically placed and waste collection hubs are developed throughout the precinct.
Phase 5 marks the 100% reuse point, from which new builds will be completed using the construction and demolition plant. The expansion of artisanal workshops and markets continue, keeping all construction waste within the Hatfield precinct, contributing to a circular, sustainable city.
The waste intervention system consists of three main elements, the first being the Waste Recreation Hub. The Waste Recreation Hub is strategically placed on the corner of Burnett and Jan Shorba, where the current waste enters and exits the system, connecting with the new waste intervention strategy. The hub accommodates various large and small-scale interventions, including the waste workshops, sorting, and third places where community engagements can occur.
On a smaller scale, waste enters the incremental system via Burnett Street and then gets sorted into the various materials. They are then directed to the artisanal workshops, incremental storage, and the LC construction and demolition plant. Artisanal workshops, craft markets, and incremental waste storage then follows the system. The majority of waste from the hub is used by artisanal craftsmen, creating products such as benches made from reused concrete and various waste crafts to be sold at the markets.
Looking at a new microcycle, The waste collected is sieved through the collection point, circulating the waste workshop and crafters markets.
The system integrates all users, incentivizing efforts to recycle, educating the community on waste systems, whilst the craft market aims to valorize waste and put it at the forefront of society. Then finally, unusable materials are recycled and recreated at the Elsie Waste and Demolition Plant. The plant can produce 50 tons of renewed materials per day, which will be recycled back into the system, feeding active sites and future phases. The waste plants will produce items such as permeable paving, gabion walls, bricks, and concrete blocks, which can be used to develop the infrastructure in the phased system proposed.
Having assessed current conditions of the city, noting abandoned buildings, parkings to be demolished, government plans, and already filled landfills, we have identified these sources as our places of farming. Our various reusable materials will go through treatment processes to achieve a reuse status and avoid infrastructure waste.
The economic and environmental benefits of these strategies and new cycles are immense. Not only will we significantly reduce our carbon footprint, but we will also be creating new markets for recycled materials. Demand for factory spaces will soar, creating jobs and boosting local economies. We're living in a world where construction waste is an invisible problem. We don't deal with the waste ourselves, our waste collectors do. We assume someone else will handle it. But what happens when that someone else has no space left to store it, or worse, no way to recycle it effectively? We will be preserving precious natural resources. By reusing materials, we are not just preventing them from filling up landfills, we are reintegrating them into the construction process, lowering the need to extract new materials. And the most important benefit, we will be creating cities that are not just built but sustained, cities that understand the values of their materials and treat them with respect they deserve. With a well-structured phasing strategy in place, we recognize that success cannot be achieved by solely relying on the system and professionals within the industry. To truly motivate the community and stakeholders, we must offer meaningful incentives to keep them engaged throughout the process. By adhering to our core principles, we aim to keep the circular economy local, ensuring transparency and fostering greater oversight of the production process. As stakeholders and the community observe, it's crucial to shift their perspective on construction waste, encouraging a more mindful approach to resource reuse. To demonstrate the effectiveness of this strategy, we will incorporate interventions and creations made from recycled materials directly into our construction sites. Interventions like permeable walkways, redesigned roads, urban furniture, tectonic market spaces, recreational facilities, and much more, giving the community and stakeholders a tangible example of a successful sustainable approach in action.
Currently, there is no publicly accessible recreational areas on Burnett Street, but rather focuses on the vehicular environment. Our intervention increases recreational space by 621% around Burnett for the community, while increasing pedestrian accessibility by reducing the streets by 62%. Now, starting with an empty site on Burnett, here we propose one of our first interventions. The waste recreation hubs aim to give back to the community through reintegrating waste as a product. Parking areas are dominating Burnett Street and its surroundings. How do we decrease these? We propose 76% reduction in parking, which is in turn replaced with public green space. The current shading condition of Burnett sits at a low of 28% covering sidewalks. In our proposed state, we will create inviting sidewalks with a 78% increase of shading. In closing, this strategy is about more than just changing how we build. It's about changing how we think. It's about building a future that is both sustainable and responsible. We are standing at a crossroads. The choices we make today will define the cities of tomorrow. We can continue the path of overconsumption and waste, or we can take responsibility and create a cycle of reuse and sustainability. The question is not whether we can afford to change, it's whether we can afford not to. Thank you.